know what I'm going to say here. I feel like John's got a lot of clarity on how to express the non-concept of awakening with words, just because he's done it more. He's talked to more people about it. And I tend not to talk about it a lot. And a lot of that is because I don't totally have the words for it. And that's a little disorienting for me because I'm a words guy. I like to talk. I like to use language to convey my experience. I think part of what's hard about talking about awakening specifically is that there's a particular flavor of doubt that comes up for me when I try to verbalize it. It's like, who do you think you are? What do you know? People have been trying to talk about this for thousands of years. What are you saying? That's, anything new, anything really worth saying. And I also really don't, I still have a lot of reactivity around being misunderstood. And this is one of those things where there's not really the capacity for words to convey the totality of it. So there's a sort of an inevitability to being misunderstood in part or in whole. So I think there's a bit of a protectiveness around that exists for me. But I think when I do try to describe it to the few people that I've tried to describe it to, the thing that comes to the forefront for me, because it was the thing that was both the most revolutionary and the had the most sort of sticking power, like staying power after the shift of awakening for me, is that it is the realization. This is also why I kind of like when people use the word realization to talk about this, because it really did feel like an immediate dawning realization that thoughts don't contain any inherent truth value. And I've heard Angelo talk about this in a way that really resonated for me, which is why I use that phrasing, because that's the phrasing that he used. But I remember the feeling of it being that anything that I thought I was didn't actually have any bearing on who I was. Any thoughts that I had about who I was didn't actually make that be true. But importantly, and this is the part that I like about the phrasing of it as not having inherent truth value, is that it also doesn't make it false. Like I can have a thought about like I am I mean, a pervasive thought, and one that's come up a lot in the past few days for me that I've been working through some shit on, is like, I am too much, right? And like, the thought exists, and it doesn't make the content of the thought true or false just by its existence. There's no way to measure the truth of a thought. And they're also not a problem. That was another big part of it, was this realization of, oh, all of these thoughts can be here, and they can be neutral, empty of truth value, and it's not a problem that they're still here. I think that was a big part of the awakening shift for me that reduced the anxiety I was experiencing on like a day-to-day basis pretty dramatically, pretty immediately, right? Which was that, like, I went from trying to figure out my thoughts or trying to quiet them, right? Either trying to figure them out, trying to organize them, trying to categorize them, trying to make them be a way that would make the reality of me okay, or trying to eliminate them. That was a big one with, like, when I would try meditation when I was younger, like in my 20s and stuff. It was this idea that you have to make the thoughts go away. They have to stop. You have to empty your mind, or you have to allow the thoughts to pass through and then let them go. And that isn't the way that the mind ever worked for me. And it still isn't, right? It still isn't. It's not. The quieting of the mind for me very rarely involves the absence of thought. It's just that I don't believe the thoughts. I don't need to believe the thoughts. I'm not scared of the thoughts. For the most part, not universally, but for the most part, I don't really even have much of an emotional reaction to the thoughts anymore, or an energetic reaction. They're just there. And it's totally fine that they're there. And this is a big part of the shift as well, that is the shift of sort of the initial awakening that I'm talking about when we use that word. Was exactly that. It was the recognition that I just don't have to believe them. I don't have to react to them. And that even if a reaction happens, that's also okay. It's funny, I have a note somewhere saved in my phone that I was like sat bolt upright in the middle of the night one night and wrote down, because I had sort of circled back around to, like, why was I so scared of my thoughts? Like, what was, because there was so much fear. There was so much fear all the time. There was this, I used to describe anxiety as a film, like a Think of like color gels for cameras or for like theater lights. It felt like there was this color gel of anxiety that just existed over everything all the time. And I had just been sort of sitting with the felt sense memory of that fear, and really getting curious about why there was so much fear there. What was that about? Because it still comes up from time to time. It's not anywhere close to, because now I'm not afraid of feeling fear. There's not that meta layer. But sometimes there will still be thoughts that come in, and then a fear that arises with the thoughts. Even if I don't believe the thought, there's still a conditioned fear response. And so what I sat bolt upright in the middle of the night realizing was, oh, I think most people actually believe that their thoughts control reality. Which sounds crazy because it is, and it sounds like the sort of thing that if you were to say that to someone, they'd be like, of course I don't actually think that, stupid. Like, or it would be this like, no, I mean, that's not really what I'm thinking. It's like, but it's just like the choices that you make, or you gotta think about the future. Like, but when you actually break it all the way down, when you follow that thread all the way down to the bottom of it, there is a belief that if you don't think about things the right way, whatever that is for any individual mind, if you don't think about things the right way, then reality will not be the way you want it to be. If you don't, it's that pull to figure things out that I felt so incessantly through the first 30 some years of my life. Like if I just understand it, if I just think it through to the point where I can understand it, where I can wrap my mind around it, then it will be okay. As if me understanding it would change anything, would make things be a different way. And I think that part of the reason that there's this intense aversion to looking at certain thoughts, certain topics, right? Like we don't like to look at or talk about death. We don't like to look at or talk about shame, fear, abuse. We don't look at those things because at some base level, some sort of almost non-conceptual level, because when you put it into concept, when you put it into words, it doesn't make sense anymore. But at some sort of base non-conceptual level, there is a belief that talking about it, looking at it directly, thinking about it, makes it true or makes it real. Because that's what language is, right? Language is the medium by which we convey thoughts between minds, right? So when you're using language to describe something, you're literally taking your thoughts, putting them into this vehicle and conveying them to another person's thoughts, like for them to then think about. And there really is this belief, or there was here, and I see it a lot in other people that I interact with. There is this belief that by talking about it, by putting language to those thoughts, you're reifying the thoughts. Even when you're talking about something that already exists. And that's what's so wild, is like, nobody pretends that death doesn't exist, but we don't talk about it because the idea is that by talking about it, you're too close. You're too close to it. You're shining a light on something that we don't want to have to confront directly. And I think that's the primary shift that I would describe awakening as is the dropping of that belief that thoughts make anything real. That thoughts are needed for reality to continue, for time to continue to unfold. And also, sort of by extension, the belief that you, the conceptual, thought-based self of you, has to do things that flow from those thoughts in order for anything to happen. Like if you stop doing anything, then nothing will happen. And just not believing that that's not true, not understanding that that's not true, but the felt experience of that not being true is the awakening shift. And I used to say it all the time. I'm realizing right now, I used to say it all the time in therapy or in conversations with people when my anxiety was really driving the car. When the gravitational pull of the thought spiral, the anxiety spiral was really in control, I would say things like, I know it's not true. I know that these thoughts that are swirling for me, this sort of doom spiral, this fabricated future that I'm creating and extrapolating and panicking about, I know in my mind, in my thought-based self-construction, I know that it's not true. But it doesn't feel like it's not true. It feels like it's true. And that felt sense is what shifts. It's not explainable with words, the way that it shifts. Because to use words would just be to know it, right? To describe it with words would just be more attempts to convey thoughts and concepts so that other people can understand it. You can't understand the felt experience of the body. You can do your best to describe it. You can point at it. But it's the example of like, try to describe the color red to a blind person, right? Try to describe the taste of chocolate to someone who's never tasted it. What words would you use? What words could you use that would actually convey it? So I don't know how much the words that I've used here convey anything. That's what I got.